We are here in Copenhagen at the University Futures Conference with the unique project coordinator, Susan Wright. Professor Wright, thank you so much for taking time to be with us today.
Pleasure.
Susan Wright is Professor of Educational Anthropology at the Danish School of Education of the Aarhus University. She has started her academic career more than 3 decades ago after receiving a doctorate in social anthropology from the University of Oxford. Professor Wright took part in producing seminal publications within anthropology of organizations and anthropology of policy, and she has been one of the leading experts within the broad field of the anthropology of the university reform. Professor Wright, drawing on your extremely rich experience as well as on the experience from the unique project, how would you describe key trends in higher education today?
Well, there's a lot, but one to start off with. A lot of people refer to the growth of managerialism in universities and the growing gulf between the world of the managers and the world of the academics and the students. And I think one of the trends around that is the way that audit culture has been developing. So more and more the management and even the governance of universities depends on numbers that are dislocated from experience. And that in a way is symbolic of this gulf, this separation. So governing by numbers and the alienation, I think, that academics feel by having their life rendered in numbers that often don't really count in terms of what's important in academic work, but it's the only thing that counts in terms of your own career or the university's finances. And that, I think, is one of the key trends that worries me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I guess you also consider this as one of the key challenges, like to the system as a whole. Would you also identify some other challenges besides governing by numbers?
I think that's part of a much bigger challenge about trust. And I've been working with some other colleagues on trying to develop an idea of a trust university, if you like, a blueprint for a trust university. One of the areas of trust would be to restore relations, working relations between academics and students and the managers. What kind of internal organisation do we need in the university? What kind of decision making do we need in the university? So that all feel that they're pulling in the same direction. That's one idea of trust. Another one, a trend that really worries me at the moment, is looking at what's happening in English higher education, with the way in which the university can be easily privatised. There's a very thin thread stopping the public universities in Britain from being privatised. And so a second meaning of trust would be to establish a form of ownership which renders the assets of the university into an inalienable trust that cannot be privatised. So that would be a second meaning.
Yeah. Any other possibilities for a positive change? These ones were really...
Yeah, well, the third meaning of trust, I think, is a really positive change, which is trust between the university and society. And how do we generate conversations with, in Danish it's called surrounding society. In other countries it's sometimes called stakeholders, but that's too much of a betting metaphor. And I think this doesn't just happen by accident. It has to be thought about and structured and built into the way academics think of their own work and the way that the university thinks of its relations with society. And I've been kind of thinking about that for quite some time. So I think there's massive opportunities there. Absolutely amazing possibilities that we could really rebuild a much more creative relationship between the university and society.
Like, would you like to name a concrete example of something you've done? And
well, what we've done in the Unique project is we've built I hope that we've built a cohort of researchers who have thought long and hard about their own training as PhD students and their own relation to society. And one of the things that we did at the Oslo workshop when you were there was we tried out what's called a search conference. And secretly, that was me also experimenting with the whole methodology of a search conference. It's ended up, in terms of the Unique project, our current Marie Curie project, with the fellows working fantastically well together around 6 themes for the future of the university that they really feel is important. And they've pulled people in from around the world to help them think about this and work forward. But I also think that we could universities could use that methodology to have search conferences with their surrounding society and to set up new dialogues really, and new ways of introducing people into conversation about the future of the university.
Thank you. You have also been talking previously about the role of education within anthropological research. And I would like now to pose a question that is the other way around, which is, what role anthropologists, in your opinion, play in the field of higher education? You answered the question why education matters to anthropology, but I'm asking now, does anthropology matter to higher education research, and if so, why?
Yeah. Well, I think anthropology can contribute something quite important amongst the panoply of other disciplines that are also working on the future of higher education. And I think the thing that's really been a focus of quite a few anthropologists from the 70s really, is how to combine an analysis of very large-scale processes of change. Whether you talk in terms of policy travel or you talk in terms of political economy, very large-scale process of change which we can be aware of very much at the moment. How does that connect with, in the policy jargon, repurposing institutions? And how does that connect with the way the people in those institutions actually experience their everyday lives and try to engage in those processes of change? So much of the literature either talks about one level or another or scale and doesn't connect them up, or else it talks about the top scale and presumes that the thinking that's going on in international policy making just trickles down to us on the ground floor. And I've been really working hard through the anthropology of policy to try and think of what Chris Shaw and I have called a democratic approach to policy making, where there's an unknowable and unpredictable potential for all sorts of people to get involved in processes of change and to connect their everyday experience to what's going on in institutional change and what's happening in policy change. So to think of the field of higher education change or reform in that very large way, which enables everyone to be a potential actor within that field. Now, that's not to say everybody is equally powerful or has the equal capacity to change it, but it just opens up the possibility. And you can see some things like that happening now. I've been following what's happening, for example, in Newcastle University in England, where this governing by numbers was being introduced top down, and academics have very sensibly and reasonably done 2 things. One, they've opened up a dialogue with the management, and at the moment it looks like they might be on the way to restoring some kind of trust. And secondly, they've started an ethnographic project recording their experiences of this personal target management. And that's a kind of a good example of where anthropology can not only help think through what's happening, but actually can provide some tools for helping people change their own institutions.
Thank you so much, Professor Wright. It was a real pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. Me too. Thank you.